Hello, and welcome to Chaos to Clarity, the podcast that's your compass to navigate the exciting world of service based businesses. If you're a determined woman in your current business adventure, striving to conquer the chaos and build your empire, then you are in the right place. I'm your host, Maggie, your go to business bestie and chaos navigator. I've spent nearly 2 decades in the service based industry, building a photography business, a yoga studio, and now a thriving coaching practice. I've cracked the code to consistent income without all the chaos and noise. So get ready to increase your business growth, connect with your ideal clients, and find ease in both business and in life. It's time to turn your frustrations into inspiration and your chaos into clarity. So go ahead and grab your coffee, a pen and paper, and let's dive into the journey of building your dream service-based business together. Are you ready? Let's go. All right, everyone, welcome back to the Chaos to Clarity podcast. My name is Maggie. I'm your host and your Chaos to Clarity business mentor and human design specialist. And today I have Cassandra with me of Wild Dreams Co. And I'm so excited to have her on. So, Cassandra, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us who you are and what you do?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me, Maggie. I'm so excited to be here. So I am Cassandra. My friends call me Cass, so you can choose. I'm an intuitive brand mentor, designer, a visionary CEO of Wild Dreams. It's now Wild Dreams Marketing,
Ooh,
which
I
is
love
fun.
it. Yeah.
And I just transitioned into that name, which was really exciting for me because I want to be all inclusive with the things that I offer. So I run an intentional brand and website design studio for female founders who are really looking to be more iconic in their brand and create more of a timeless approach to their brand and have that be able to like grow and evolve with them. So kind of
Yeah.
what
Oh
I
my
do.
gosh. I love that so much. So, knowing that you are an intuitive brander, essentially, right? And that you run an intuitive branding company. I'm curious, and I know we've had conversations before about having conversations, but I'm curious about like how collaborations and conversations have helped you grow your business, knowing that it's kind of intuitive. I'm sure you kind of feed off of some of that stuff. So tell us, like, how have you really utilized the art of having a conversation in your business?
So I love having conversations with people, and I feel like I go very deep very quickly with people when I have conversations with them, and it allows me get to like know them on a deeper level, and we build this like trust and authenticity behind it. And it feels like I've known them for years. Like that's the kind of conversations that I love to have. And I love to connect with people through different ways. Like the same way that you and I connected through both being Manny Gens. And then we started this whole big conversation around that and was like, oh my God, me too. Right. So, like, you find commonalities with people and you build these relationships. And it just like, it fills my heart so much because, like, when I was young, I remember I didn't feel like seen or heard with who I truly was. So, for me, it's really important to listen to somebody to be able to build on that relationship and not just have like a one-off conversation. And I found that almost every single client that I've worked with over the past 5 years has always referred me because they know and they've built that trust and relationship with me. And they've always come back to me for like whether it's a website update, whether they're creating a whole new business, whether they are, I don't know, they need some graphics for social media. Like I've had people literally like beg me for those things when they could get them from somewhere else because I built that trust with them and I know their brand so well. So that's what's like the fun part is like just like randomly like getting referrals from people that you've connected with and then also building relationships inside of like networking groups and like having those trustworthy people that you can bring into your network and say, you know what, I have a really great person who does business coaching. I have a really great person who does SEO. and let them like build on their brand with people that you already know and you trust. So it's kind of like a long-winded answer, but that's kind of what
I
it is.
love that though. And I think it's so important because I see and I hear like my clients, but also just like being on social media, right? I see so many people talking about wanting to collaborate. And I'm curious, like thinking about conversations, even the human design aspect of being like a Manny Gen, what have like I know what conversations have done with me, which is why for me, like that's why I get so excited about it. Also, I love to have the podcast, right? Being able to talk to people, collaborate with people. But I'm curious what it's been like for you. So when you think about like conversations and networking and collaborating, what are some things that you've done to grow your business through connections and collaborations? Like what are some of the things you've gotten to do?
Mm. So recently I've done these a while ago, but I've done them more locally. So I've been working with like a few clients like locally and things like that. So I've done these content creation days and little intimate like network gatherings. And the reason why is because I want people to feel more connected with each other. I want them to gain that visibility on Instagram and like have these collaborative partners, right? So we just had like this beautiful content creation day, and it was all different brands from skincare to jewelry to a hair salon, and to a beauty spa, and really brought them together so that they can co-create content together and then share each other, right? So like that's one thing that I really love to do is this like collaborative content creation. And that helps me grow like my skills from content creation and helps me connect people, and it just feels good to me. Um, so that's one thing. And then the other is like having those conversations with people that with business owners and in general, that I know would be able to support my clients when they are ready to go to the next level and when they're ready to evolve. Like I do have SEO partners, I do have people that are ad strategists. I have I'm trying to think like who else. I do have other people who know website design. So like I have that network and like really building that relationship around trust and authenticity and make sure that they're bringing that to my clients as well. And I do offer like a 10% referral fee and they do the same. So it kind of helps me grow in that way. And just like being intentional with building those partners because I want somebody who's has like the same values that I do.
Right. Yeah. Oh, that's so awesome. I love that. I love in-person stuff. And I didn't realize how much I missed it until we, like all navigated COVID and then like we
Yeah.
couldn't. And then I was like, oh, but I actually missed that.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I think that's so powerful, like building up your local community to just kind of like shine offline, right? And even like to shine online. But having that like in-person partnership is such a cool like extra like level deeper. Like that's definitely something that it's one of those like okay, that is on my wish list of things to do like in my local community. Just because I think it's so powerful to come together and create content. A lot of times I feel like it's easier, right, to
Mm-hmm.
create content when you're around other people because now you're like, oh, well, they're working. I surely can do something, right? Or you can ask them then to be like, hey, I'm stuck. And, if we're thinking about it from like human design, right? If you're like a generator or a Manny Gen, like being like, can someone just ask me some questions and I'll
Mm-hmm.
start talking and then the ideas are going to start flowing. Like, I think that is such a cool way to do. That's why I love co-working.
Yeah.
Because it just gives you that, especially for, right, the generators and Manny Gens, it gives you that feedback. It gives you that, ability to respond.
And it even like ignites this like spark of somebody may have an idea, and that's what generates that response, right? That sacral response. Even if you're not a Gen or a mani Gen, like somebody might have an idea that might be like, oh wow, I didn't even think of that. But maybe there really is a need for that, and maybe that's something that I can move forward with in my business. Like you never know where that's gonna come from. And
Right.
I think getting people's like outside perspectives too is really helpful in what you're doing, because sometimes we have these like blinders on and we can't really see past them no matter what your human design type is. And
Right.
it can be like really supportive to have that outside perspective of somebody who's not even in your industry, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So while we're on the topic of human design, I know you're a Manny Gen, and I'm curious, like, how this is kind of a two-part question. So the first part is, how did you bring more of your human design into your business? Like, because we know, well, at least most people who know about human design know that Manny Gens, especially if they're a Manny Gen, like we have the like Tasmanian devil energy sometimes, right? Where it's like, I'm here, I'm there, I'm this, I'm that, I'm all over the place. And like,
Mhm.
it's kind of like ADHD brain. I'm not diagnosed with ADHD, but I am a Manny Gen, and I feel like there's something there because I can be all over the place. But like I'm curious how have you brought your human design into your business more?
So it's funny that you say we feel like we're all over the place. And when I actually first learned human design, that was one of my limiting beliefs, because somebody told me that when I had all of these ideas to create like all of these different types of businesses, and they told me like you're just all over the place, and that stuck with me for so long until I learned human design, and I was like, well, I'm meant to be all over the place and it's okay. So that was like one thing that I really loved about learning that I was a Manny Gen. um, so the way that I bring it into my business is like I have a weekly task list, and I found this perfect one at Home Goods. And it really helps me stay focused on the task that I need to get done. Like
Hmm.
it's just 1 week. I don't look at anything else. It's sits on my desk, and I have to put pen to paper.
Yeah.
That is one thing that really helps me like focus with my ADHD crazy mini gen energy. Like that's one thing that really helps me focus. But the way that I utilize it is like I can collapse time fully around projects and around brand design and website design. I like play tricks with myself in my head and say like, "Oh my God, you have so much to do," but it's really different projects. But then when I sit to do it, I can literally get a whole brand done in 1 day,
Right.
because I listen to that person, I focus on that person, I drop back into their energy, and then I can just drop in and create and get it done. Even if I sit at the computer for 8 hours or whatever it doesn't matter to me because it feels good and it fuels my sacral. So
Hmm.
that's kind of how I use that. And then I also listen to my sacral response a lot. And if I'm doing a project, like I will hop between projects during the week. I will
Hmm.
hop between like a different website project and like a brand project or whatever it is. And I'll even like have clients be like, "Hey, is it possible you can create graphics for me this week?" And I'll be like, "Yeah, sure," even though I have 10,000 other things.
Right.
Right. So like this is the type that I am, and I'll listen to my sacral like, okay, what is it that needs to get done today? Do I actually want to get that thing done? Or do I want to just hop on this thing because that's going to make me feel more satisfied, and I'm going to just create this real quick and get that done and out of the way so
Hmm.
that I can fully focus the next day all my energy on the other project. That makes sense. So it's kind of like I have this like flip flop energy, but I know that I can collapse time around it because I am
Hmm.
a mini gen. So that's
Yeah.
kind of how I use it in my business. And just like fueling my sacral response. And if there's a day that I need to just like take off and chill and just like watch a Gossip Girl all day long, and like that's what I need to do. Like that's what I'm gonna do. So
Yeah.
just like listening to that sacral response was a really big one for me, and just like following that intuition there. So yeah.
Hmm. So relatable. So relatable, right? Where like I've had so many people, like one specific instance for me where like like recently was in 2020. I was in my 300-hour master teacher yoga teacher training. And at the end of it, we were on Zoom, but we were like, in this little like kumbaya circle. We were graduating and everyone had to say something nice about the person who was graduating. And multiple people said to me, and I know they meant it as like a compliment, but it was so backhanded and I got so mad that they were like,
Mhm.
I don't know how you do it all. Don't you ever want to slow down? Like, congrats on doing like all this stuff. And by the time like everyone had basically said that same thing, I came off of mute and I said, I'm so excited to graduate. I'm closing my yoga studio. And they were like just jaws on the floor, like, what are you gonna do? Oh my gosh, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I have 100 other things that I want to do more than keep a yoga studio open during a pandemic. This is no longer fueling me. And like, but I feel like a Manigen and their decisions, not nobody understands their decisions sometimes because they
Mhm.
seem illogical, but probably mostly, at least for me, I'm sure for you too, I've already collapsed the time on like, okay, this is no longer fueling me. I can't do it anymore. So I need to go do this other thing. And since then, since learning, when I learned about human design, I was like, oh, I'm a Manny Gen. Thank God. Oh, this
Same.
explains so much about like
Mhm.
me being all over the place and having all these little pet projects, but still somehow like getting all the things done. Um, and I
Mhm.
think, like, so when I know other people I've talked to, they're like, oh, when I found out as a Manny Gen, I was so sad. And I was like, oh my gosh, it was such a freeing moment for me to be like, oh, good. I think I said to my husband, I don't think I have ADHD. I'm just a Manny Gen.
If they're not many gens, they don't get it. They're like, what does that even mean?
Oh,
And I
totally.
there's so many times that I've told my husband that he's like, what are you doing? You're making like three different meals at once. You're making a huge mess in the kitchen. What is this? Like, I don't even know what you're doing. I'm like, this is just the way that my brain works. You're gonna have to deal with it. And he's like, but you just stopped what you were doing in the bedroom to come out here and make a mess in the kitchen. And now the bedroom is a mess. And like, what are you doing? Can you just finish one project? And he's a generator, so like he
Yeah,
has to finish one project and like complete it fully.
right.
So yes, I get it. It's hard sometimes, but it's like this is who we are. And I'm
Oh,
like, you just
totally.
have to deal with it because this is just like what I'm gonna do. And he's like, you
Hmm.
look like a crazy person. I'm like,
Yeah.
yep, I am, but it's all good.
It's all good, but at the end of the day, I'll have it all done. So like just give me a couple hours and it'll be fine.
Exactly. You're gonna have the meal for the whole entire week, and it's all gonna be set, and you're gonna be good. And
Yep.
then the clothes are gonna be folded and everything else. So like, it's all gonna get done. Don't you
Yep.
worry.
Yes. Oh, same. Totally. Yeah. Like right now, there's laundry going in the basement. I'm on here. I just made some like orzo salad for the week before hopping on here. Like, we'll get it. We have to pack for camping. Like, yeah, it'll be done. Like, I'm not worried.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so the other part of my question, right? We kind of talked about like how do you use your like Gen energy in your business. I'm curious, what are some of your like go-to methods for like recharging or like when like okay, I have this huge list of things to do, but like today listening to my sacral just needs to be like a Netflix day. Like how do you handle that? And then what is your like go-to method for like knowing you need a recharge?
So I like to listen to meditations. I like to pull like oracle cards, and I have this book called Work Your Light by Rebecca Campbell, and it kind of goes along with her oracle cards. But sometimes if I'm feeling like in a little funk and need like a little boost of inspiration or like what are you actually feeling? I'll just like go to that book, Work Your Light, and I'll like open it up to a page and more times rather than not, it's something that's in really like alignment with what I needed to hear in that moment. And I'll spend some time like journaling.
Mm-hmm.
I really love being out in nature too. So like I'll go on hikes with the boys, like on the weekends, or maybe we'll just like go for a walk after school or something along those lines. So I'll what I used to do in the summer before they started school was go out in the morning before they would wake up. I would just like sit out on the back patio and just like journal and see
Mm-hmm.
like what came through, just let the sun shine in. And you're a Leo too. You get it. You love the sunshine and just like the way
Yep.
it fuels you. Um so just kind of journaling and letting whatever needs to come through. And I would get so many different ideas and letting them come through. And then I have to like go back later on when I actually have that spaciousness to
Mm-hmm.
see what I want to create next. And I have like notebooks and notebooks and notebooks full of all of these ideas. So
Yep.
when I do feel like I'm in a little bit of like this low, I'll go back and be like, "Ooh, how does that feel? Oh my God, look at these amazing ideas that you had. Maybe it's time to start moving on them. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
it's time to create something new. Maybe it's time to pivot. Maybe it's time to take a break from social media, even because that can, I have an open head and open ajna. So sometimes if I'm there on social media, I can just keep absorbing what the other people are doing and be like, oh, do I actually want to do that? Maybe I don't. Maybe I do. Maybe I'm just listening to other people and not myself.
Mm-hmm.
So just kind of knowing when I have to like take those breaks and just kind of coming back to myself. I'll do meditations, journaling, reading, and just seeing where it goes from there and just like leading myself through that way and that kind of thing. I also have like a Mind Valley subscription. So I actually love going in there and seeing like, okay, what program do I want to listen to today? Or what do I want to learn today? Do I want to learn something? Do I want to meditate on something or whatnot?
Mm-hmm.
So,
I love that. And I think it's really important for all of the types, right? Like anyone to understand like what does it mean for you to recharge? Like in projectors, a lot of times I see they're trying to keep up like they're trying to run their business like a Manny Gen. And I'm always like, no, no, like you're not meant to run your business that hard. You're meant to have support and like what are things that fuel you? What do you like to do when you rest? It doesn't necessarily mean like sleeping or like watching TV or a couple of my projector friends, they're like, I like to sit and rot. And like, and they mean like rot in front of the TV, right? Just like zone out. And I'm like, okay, but what are other things other than like that? Because like, let's not fill your head with useless crap. Like, do you like to learn?
mhm,
Right? Do you like to read? Like, where do you like to be outside? I think it's so important to understand what that is and even just the power of like being outside and even just like strolling around outside, the power of movement, right? To get some of that like stagnant energy, like moving through your body, like getting it out is so powerful. I mean, even especially if you have like so I have an undefined root. And I feel like move when I feel stagnant, moving in any sort of manner is what like kind of helps shake off the funk. So I
mhm,
love that so much. And I also love that human design just gives us like another way to learn about ourselves. And it
mhm.
really feels like yoga to me, where it's like it's this kind of experiment and I get to practice. And if it feels good, I'm gonna do it. And when it doesn't, I'm not gonna do it. It's so cool. I love it so much.
Exactly. I have an undefined route too. So sometimes I notice in my business if a project is not done yet or they are like taking their time to respond or something, I notice that it can affect me sometimes. And I'm like, I just want this project to be done so I can move on to the next one and call in new clients. So like
Hmm.
sometimes that undefined route like plays those little tricks on me. So I've had to kind of like find ways to put boundaries in place in my business and on like response times with clients and make sure that they know like I have other projects going on. We need to either wrap this up or I'm going to move it to another date and this is when we're going to get it done. So
Yep.
like putting those boundaries on myself too has been really important, especially for any business owner. Like putting those boundaries in place is going to be what helps support you and the growth of your business. So
Yeah. Ooh, I love that so much. So you kind of answered my next question before I asked it. So my next question is, what is some advice that you'd give someone who's really starting to like tap into their human design? And like what easy ways have you found that you would tell others to like apply it to their business?
um, I would definitely say start with your profile lines and your type first.
Mhm.
That was something that I started with first, but then you can quickly go down the rabbit hole of human design where it's really, really expansive, where you're learning about your centers and you're learning about gates and channels and you're learning about so many other things. It can quickly get overwhelming, right?
Yes.
Like, you know this too. So I think definitely starting with your type and doing little practices. Like if you are a Seiko response, a Gen or a Mani Gen, like ask yourself those yes or no questions.
Hmm.
Ask the people around you who are Gen and Mani Gen those yes or no questions, or like this or that questions, because you're going to see how quickly you get a response when you do things like that. And you'll quickly learn what it actually feels like in your body too.
Hmm.
Um, I say that because I have two boys who are generators. And when you ask, like, what's for dinner? I don't know. I
Right.
don't know. So,
Yes.
like, do you guys want pizza or do you want chicken nuggets? So, like, asking questions like that, and then they give you a response quicker. So, like,
Hmm.
that's one thing that I played with the most in human design. And then, as you learn, start to learn your centers little by little,
Hmm.
because that will also help you to really understand what you're absorbing and what you're putting out. I will say
Hmm.
so. Like I have a defined throat for so long, I held back and I felt myself like that tickle in my throat. And sometimes I feel it now, and I'm like, okay, what do you want me to say? And like asking these questions to myself because I know that I have something to say. So, how can I use that? If I don't have a podcast right now, I can go on Instagram stories and speak out my truth and say what I need to
Hmm.
say, right? So, like, I use it in that ways in my business. Um, and what else? In my other ways you can use it in your business are creating the boundaries. Like I said before, it's like asking yourself certain questions. Okay, this person is doing this method. How does that feel for me? Do
Hmm.
I like the way that they're doing that? Is that giving me inspiration? Or is it making me feel like less than because I don't have that system set up the way that she does and she has her process so organized? But for me, maybe I want something more simple. And I want my process to be really simple for my clients. And I like the way that it works. And my clients have really responded in the way that they feel good about the way that I've had my process. I've asked for feedback in the past, and then they're happy with it. So why change it just
Hmm.
because somebody else is doing something one way, right? So
Right.
like really seeing what works for you. And I always say, like, try things on, even with your brand, even with the essence behind your brand and the foundation of your brand, is like trying things on and seeing what fits and see what actually feels good to you. And don't be afraid to fail at that. Don't be afraid to have these like restrictions that you're putting on yourself because you think it's not going to go somewhere, right?
Right.
It's okay if it fails. We learn from it and we build upon those challenges and those frustrations, because then we know we don't want that in our business and we finally discover what we actually do want. So
Hmm.
those are, I know it was like a lot of things that I just said. I honestly don't even remember what I just said at this point because I said so many different things. So go back and re-listen to that whole section again once you're in this podcast, because there's just so many tools that you can take from that and really bring it into your business and make your business you. You don't want a
Hmm.
carbon copy of your mentor. You don't want a carbon copy of that influencer that you follow, like you want it to feel authentic and you. And that's what human design allows you to do too. So
Right. Yeah, totally. I really love that I feel like the coaching industry is, and I know you're not a coach, but like for me, when I look at the coaching industry and just how much it's grown, I see so many people who are stepping away from like, oh, I'm going to copy what that person did, or I'm going to be an exact match of my mentor. And they're really starting to step out into that like authenticity and being able to stand out among the crowd, right? A lot of people are in my DMs asking me, how do I stand out from the crowd? Do I have to like incorporate human design to stand out? And I'm like, no, but like what are those quirky things that you do that people are going to be like, "Oh my gosh, I love that so much." Right? Like what are those things, and build that into your brand. Like tell people about those weird well, maybe not all the weird quirky things, but like like share those things that make you different from someone else, because that's really how you create like brand identity, right? Where people are going
Mhm.
to be like, oh, that person does that thing, and that's what I want to do, right? There's what, 9, 10, I don't know how many billion people in the planet. I promise there's clients for everyone.
There is. There's like over 8 billion people, I think, on the planet. I know this because my son did a whole presentation on his class like a few years ago, and it was called 8 billion people.
Yeah.
So it's like everyone has a story to tell. Like you said, like it could even be your story of why you created your business. And
Mhm.
that's one thing that I love to do with my clients is like I hear their story. Like what led you to create this business? What led you to create with such purpose and passion? And what lights you up? And bring that into your brand and bring those little quirks along with it. And be your fullest self because that's what people really feel and they connect to. Like, even if you're just behind a screen, even if you're in person, like people can feel that.
Mhm.
So I think that that's beautiful that you said that too. And that's like a huge part of why people feel connected to certain brands. And you can even
Right.
see, like, as an example, is like you can see what brands that you already love and do this little questionnaire for yourself. Is like see what brands you really love and what makes you feel connected to them.
Mhm.
Like if it's Nike, for example, like what makes you actually feel like you're connected to it? Is it the feeling of when you put those running shoes on and you feel like you can run even faster or you feel like you can run longer? Is it the feeling that you can like take on the world when you put those shoes on? Like it could be anything. So think of the brands that you already use and ask yourself that question of like, how does that brand make me feel? Why do I want to keep purchasing from that brand? Because that's what people are going to want from you.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that so much. Okay, so this is the last question before we wrap things up. And honestly, I mean, I could talk all day. So I feel like this is a good place to wrap it up. So the last question is totally off the wall. And for everyone who's listened before, you know what I'm going to ask. So if you were a kitchen gadget or utensil, what would you be and why?
Oh gosh. Um, I think I would be a whisk because I like to mix things up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
funny.
I
But
love that.
that's like what first came to my mind.
I love that. And that's, like I think I it's probably my favorite question to ask is that one. Just because like everyone's answers are so different, but just always so applicable to like what they're doing in their lives. So I think that's perfect. Well, thank
Thanks.
you. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today. So I'm going to drop all of the links below, but go ahead and tell everyone where they can connect with you, and if you have any freebies.
Sure. So you can find me at wild underscore dreams underscore co on Instagram or wilddreams.co on my website. Um I do have some really great new freebies coming out soon. One is going to be on brand photos. One is building your website with clarity. And then the other one is on retreats. So there's lots of things. Just come connect with me over on Instagram and my website, and you can get access to all the things.
I love that. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today, Cass. It was so fun to talk to you. And again, make sure you hit all of the links below and make sure you like, share, comment, all the things, because I always forget that whole list of things. But make sure you let everybody know that you've listened. Share this on Instagram and slide right into my DMs. Let me know what you got out of this episode. Wow, what a great interview. Thank you so much for showing up here on the Chaos to Clarity podcast. Again, my name is Maggie. I'm so excited to connect with you. You can find all of the information, all of the links below in the show notes for today's interview. And I hope you have the best day ever.